Well, the season just came to an end for the NFL with the Los Angeles Rams beating the Cincinnati Bengals in Super Bowl 56, surprisingly, in LA. Of course, that's a dose of sarcasm for those of you that don't know me. So, with the season being over, and a lot of teams still needing to figure out um, like what they need to do from a scheme standpoint, from a roster move standpoint, and with some teams like the Green Bay Packers are a big example of this. How are they going to get under the cap going into next season? Um, and so, with that being said, we'll kind of transition from the end of the season, kind of projecting into next season. These are my personal rankings with the NFL teams. Um, they range from freaking elite to just complete trash. Um, and so I guess without further ado, with one disclaimer, if you don't agree with my opinion, that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. And this is mine. So let's get to it. All right, so there's the different tiers there. There's five of them, like I said, ranging from elite at the top to just complete and utter trash at the bottom. Let's start with the Tennessee Titans, just since their logo is right here. I'm going to put them in the good category. Just simply like the best that they've done is make it to the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, and that was 2 years ago, the year that the Chiefs won the World Championship. But aside from that, they've been kind of disappointing in big moments overall. They kind of lack that consistency that a great or an elite team has. And that's, again, just my personal opinion. Miami Dolphins. I'm going to put them in the bad category. Like, from a roster standpoint, their roster isn't bad. It's just the problem is they just fired Brian Flores, which was just a stupid move in my opinion. He was a really good coach coming off back-to-back winning seasons. And after the Dolphins had a terrible start to the year, they almost rallied and make the playoffs behind Brian Flores. So, and then there's allegations being made that Stephen Ross a couple seasons ago offered a lot of money to Brian Flores to lose games intentionally because they were trying to get a better draft pick. And so there's potential that if those allegations have any merit, that Stephen Ross could be forced to sell the team, which at that team I would pretty much just demote the Dolphins from bad to trash, just like if they were to officially have to be sold from Stephen Ross. And Cleveland Browns, I could put them in the bad category, but I won't. They were a few years ago. They were at one point they were in the trash category, and then they got up to bad, and they're up to good, I'd say. Just it's hard to tell how much better they could have been if Baker Mayfield was in fact healthy the entire year. Who knows how much he really could have elevated that roster. I think they are definitely an elite quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender. And Baker Mayfield kind of represents the Browns. Like, he's good. He's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but he's not a great or elite quarterback. And I don't know if he ever will be in Cleveland. Jaguars, this is easy. Trash. Doesn't even need further explanation. Same with the Lions. Trash. Minnesota Vikings. I will put them in the good category. Kind of the same thing with the Titans. Like, they've had moments of brilliance, but hasn't really been substantiated with consistency in like making the playoffs, winning their division. They still got a ways to go to get out of that good category, just to even break into the great category. And assuming the Buccaneers find a replacement for Tom Brady, I'd say worst case scenario, they are in the great category. Because let's say if they're able to get Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, Or in a shocking twist of fate, maybe Kyler Murray. Or maybe even a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo. Who knows? I mean, they could, worst case, be in the great category because they still got a lot of weapons, and I think part of it's going to factor based off of where Chris Godwin goes, because he's going to have quite the market as a free agent this offseason, even with the injury concern. So we'll see kind of how that plays out. 49ers, I'll put them in the good category. I mean, sure, they've darn near made it to the Super Bowl 2 out of the last 3 years, but in those big moments where Jimmy G needed to make a play, hasn't been consistently there. It just seems he's more prone to throw that "what the hell were you thinking" interception to a "holy crap, he just threw that" type of touchdown pass. Sorry, Atlanta's my home away from home, but they are bad. I mean, they're not trash because they at least have a decent organization. They just haven't played well in recent years. Baltimore Ravens, they had an off year this year, but overall with Lamar Jackson as their quarterback and having that system around him that it works for that team. Now that I think about it, I'm going to put them in a good category. And they're not that far away from being back in the great category. They just need to get rolling again. See, the Bears, I don't even know. I'll just put them in the bad category because they've been bad. Bengals, they definitely have the potential to be in the great category, for sure. Kind of seems like where Baltimore has kind of fallen off. Like, Cincinnati really took it to everybody this year. And, I still hate that they beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, kind of in the way it played out, because I have my theories about how that game ended up and why it played out the way it did, but it's pretty irrelevant in this video because we're just talking about how good these teams are. The Cowboys, good. They have the potential to be great, especially with how that defense played this past year, but with Mike McCarthy as their head coach, that's the best they're ever going to be, is good. Borderline overrated, but good nonetheless. Houston Texans, trash. They've been that way for a long time. The Indianapolis Colts. Only because they don't have an elite quarterback, I'm putting them in the good category. I mean, a great organization, but in terms of roster, they're an elite quarterback away. Like, potentially an Aaron Rodgers trade away from being in the great category. The Rams, I mean, there's not a whole lot of holes in that team, in that organization right now, so they're definitely going to represent the elite category. I think this is the year that the Chargers go from good to great. I think part of it, was that they proved they can beat the Chiefs with Justin Herbert as their quarterback. And Justin Herbert is a great quarterback, a great young man and a great quarterback. And my God, I guess his biggest strength is fourth downs. I mean, my God. That one game against the Raiders, week 18, in the final game of the regular season, they converted like they got 6 first downs on fourth down because of Justin Herbert. So, moving on. My hometown, Kansas City Chiefs. To me, unless they have a really big, consistent drop-off, I'm putting them in the elite category. Because especially when it comes to the division, you still got to go through Kansas City. And technically 4 years running, the AFC Championship game has been right here in Kansas City. So it's kind of one of those until something changes. This is going to stay the same. The Saints, man, they they were trending in a great direction with Jameis Winston as their quarterback before he got hurt. And this is on the assumption that they bring him back for at least a year. Maybe on a 2-year deal. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell how that's going to play out. But I would say worst case scenario, they're going to be in the good category. And I don't know how Dennis Allen's going to be as their head coach, considering his track record as a head coach is trash. I guess we'll see how that plays out without Sean Payton. Giants, easy, trash. Philadelphia Eagles. At one point in time, I thought they were trending towards bad, but they really proved me wrong, and they trended at the end of the season good. They made the playoffs, by God. So, the Steelers, I say this is assuming they get a solid quarterback, whether it's through the draft or they, bring somebody in. I'm going to put them in the great category. That defense was solid, especially, led by that man, TJ Watt. And they've got some weapons. We'll see if they re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster. And I guess we'll kind of see, especially with that offensive line. Let's see if that offensive line gets a little bit better next year. Or if they get a mobile quarterback to kind of cover up that weakness there. Broncos, I don't know. They have their moments where they're good, especially when they just trolled the Cowboys this year on the field. But I got to put them in the bad category. They're just not quite in that good category just yet. The Green Bay Packers, now this is under the assumption that Aaron Rodgers stays or they get at least a decent quarterback to kind of keep things rolling up there. I mean, I got to put them in the elite category. Especially if they keep Aaron Rodgers, they have a chance to win a Super Bowl coming out of the NFC. Carolina Panthers. So much potential, especially with McCaffrey, but he keeps getting hurt, and they brought back Cam Newton, and it worked at first, but then it just fizzled out about as quickly as it got going again. If they have another year like they did last year, or a couple years or so, they'll get demoted to trash. But right now, they're in the bad category. The Raiders, they're good. Rich Bisaccia definitely proved that he's a better NFL head coach than I kind of think a lot of people would have expected. So, yeah. And in terms of roster, this team is good, but in terms of organization, especially ownership, is trash. Just because of who he is as a human being. The Washington now named Commanders. We'll see how they turn out this year with the roster going into the season. But as of right now, I guess I could have created a mediocre category because that's where I'd put them. But in terms of this, what I have up, they'll go in the bad category. And a lot of drama has come up with this team, mostly because of their quarterback being kind of a prima donna, finger pointer, and immature, and not able to handle defeat the way that it happened in the playoffs. But with that being said, I think they figure out a way to work out their issues, and the Cardinals are going to be in the great category. Although they need to stop choking at the end of the season. Like, I don't know what it is about Cliff Kingsbury, but his teams tend to just tank at the end of the season. They start off on fire, and then they just tank at the end of the season for whatever reason. I don't know. But, I mean, their roster is really, really, really good. So, there's that. Buffalo Bills, I mean, I'm not going to lie. There were times they should have beat the Chiefs in the AFC divisional round this past year, the game that I attended with my dad. So, by God, I mean, to me, they're the co-favorite coming out of the AFC. Chiefs and Bills could easily be the AFC Championship game again, and I'm not going to lie, it very well could happen in Buffalo next time those two teams meet in the AFC Championship game. And, man, I mean, even though we have beaten the Bills in the playoffs 2 years in a row, uh, this last one especially did not come easy. The one before that didn't come easy, and this one sure as hell didn't either. They are a phenomenal team. Josh Allen's a great quarterback. That defense is really good. Their offense is really solid. I don't really see any holes for them this season, because even with the loss of Brian Daboll to the Giants, they very well just they have the. I think they have the pieces in place to just keep rolling. I think they'll win their division again, and they'll roll deep into the playoffs for sure. That's just my personal opinion. If you don't agree with me, it is what it is. I don't really care. The Seahawks, I'd say they're good with Russell Wilson right now. But assuming he expresses his discontent another offseason and decides he wants out and he does get traded, and since I'm assuming this will happen, the Seahawks are going to start a rebuild and they're going to be bad. Patriots, man, they kind of had their moments between these two categories, the great and the good category. I don't know where to put them. But I mean, Buffalo humiliated them in the playoffs. But even with that being said, I'll put them in the good category. They're pretty good. And the Jets, I mean, it's not even a question. They're trash. Just, like, these 5 teams in this category have deserved to be there. Because they are just complete and utter garbage. From the roster to the front office, the ownership, the whole organizations as a whole just absolutely suck. And if you're in the bad category, I mean, some of these teams, like the Seahawks and Dolphins and the Commanders, they very easily have a chance to get promoted to good. And some of these teams in the good category, like the Cowboys, for example, if they get rid of Mike McCarthy because he is terrible in big moments. The Titans, if they got an elite quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or someone along those lines. Indianapolis Colts, if they got an elite quarterback. 49ers. Some of these teams can be promoted to great. Coming out of there, and for these teams right here, like the Buccaneers, depends on what they do at quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers, depends on what they do at quarterback. For the Bengals, it's dependent on what they do at offensive line, because their offensive line was trash pretty much the entire year, except magically against the Chiefs both times, basically because our pass rush sucked. So that's saying something there. Hint, hint, Brett Veach, get some pass rushers. The Chargers, I think they can easily go from great to elite. I mean, they've got the potential. They just need to prove it. And the Cardinals, if they can roll at the end of the season as well as they typically do in the beginning of the season, they can end up in elite. But we'll see. And those are my NFL rankings by teams. And if you don't agree with me, again, it is what it is. Not everyone's going to agree with me. I know that going in, and that's fine. You know, if you want to make your own list, you know, be my guest. I'm on tiermaker.com/create/NFL. It's just that easy if you want to create your own rankings. So, this is Tyler Corlew, signing off.